The rancher had learned a long time ago that helping people usually meant getting hurt. But that morning, when he saw the woman and the boy standing near the fence line at the edge of his land, something inside him refused to stay silent. The sun was low, painting the dry grass gold, and the wind carried the faint creak of the old barn behind him. She looked exhausted in a way that went beyond tired muscles. Her eyes carried the weight of too many nights without sleep, too many goodbyes she never planned to make. The boy clung to her skirt. Barefoot dust smudged on his cheeks, his small fingers curling and uncurling like he wasn't sure whether to hold on or let go. The rancher, Caleb, kept his arms crossed, not out of anger, but out of habit. People passed through sometimes. They always did. Drifters, runaways, folks with stories that started sad and ended messy. He told himself he was just going to point them toward the main road, maybe give them some water and send them on their way. That was the smart thing, the safe thing. But when the woman met his eyes, she didn't ask for money or sympathy. She asked quietly if they could rest for a moment. Just a moment. Caleb nodded before his mind could object. He gave them water, then food, then let them sit on the porch while the boy chased dust motes like they were fireflies. The woman said her name was Mara. She didn't say where they came from, only that they'd been traveling longer than they expected. Caleb didn't push. He knew better than to pry open wounds that hadn't finished bleeding. As the afternoon stretched on, the boy grew braver, toddling closer to Caleb, peering at the horses, laughing when one snorted. Caleb felt something unfamiliar tighten in his chest. It had been years since laughter lived on this land. Years since his wife's voice faded into memory. Years since the house stopped sounding like home. When the sun began to dip, Caleb offered them the spare room. He told himself it was just for the night, just until morning. Mara hesitated, pride fighting desperation, but the boy yawned against her shoulder and she finally nodded. That night, Caleb lay awake, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of life. Under his roof, soft footsteps, a child's whisper, a woman's quiet sob she thought no one could hear. Something in him shifted over the next days. Just one night became several. Mara helped around the ranch, her hands finding purpose in small chores. The boy, Eli, followed Caleb everywhere, asking endless questions about cows and fences and why the sky changed colors. Caleb answered when he could and smiled when he didn't know. He told himself it was temporary, that all things were. But each morning Eli greeted him like he'd always belonged there, and each night Mara looked a little less afraid. Caleb began fixing things he'd ignored for years, the loose stair, the broken gate, without realizing why. He caught himself cooking real meals instead of canned ones, leaving the porch light on at night. Still, he kept his distance. He didn't ask why Mara flinched at sudden noises. He didn't ask why Eli sometimes woke up crying. He didn't ask because asking meant caring, and caring meant loss. One afternoon, while Caleb repaired a fence, Eli climbed onto the lower rail, arms stretched wide toward him, laughing. Mara rushed forward, worried, but Caleb steadied the boy with strong hands. Eli looked up at him, eyes bright and trusting, and said, "You won't let me fall, right?" Caleb swallowed hard and said, "No, I won't." He meant it more than he realized. That night, as the fire cracked and shadows danced on the walls, Mara finally spoke of leaving. She said they couldn't stay forever. She said people like her didn't get forever. Caleb nodded, pretending agreement, pretending relief. But when he went to bed, the house felt too small and too empty all at once. If this story is already pulling at something inside you, take a moment to subscribe to the channel, because stories like this, stories about unexpected family and second chances, are exactly why we're here, and you won't want to miss what comes next. The morning Mara planned to leave arrived too quietly, as if the ranch itself was holding its breath. Caleb noticed the packed bag by the door before anyone said a word, and something in his chest cracked like dry wood. He told himself this was how it always went. People came, people left. He'd survived worse. Still, when Eli padded into the kitchen, rubbing his eyes and saw the bag, confusion spread across his face. "We going somewhere?" he asked. Mara knelt, smoothing his hair, and said they were just moving on. Eli frowned, then looked at Caleb as if waiting for him to correct her. Caleb said nothing. He couldn't. Later, as Mara gathered the last of their things, Caleb saddled a horse, offering to take them to the road. The air was heavy with unsaid words. Halfway there, Eli broke the silence. He looked up at Caleb with the pure seriousness only a child could muster and asked, "Are you staying forever?" The question landed like a thunderclap. Caleb stopped walking. Mara froze. Eli's voice trembled, not with fear, but with hope. Caleb knelt in front of him, searching for an answer that wouldn't break him. He'd helped them, because it was the right thing. Or so he thought. But somewhere along the way, helping had turned into loving, and loving terrified him. Mara's eyes filled with tears as she watched, knowing this moment would decide everything. Caleb opened his mouth and closed it, then finally said the truth he'd been running from. "I don't know how to leave anymore," he said softly. Mara's breath caught. Eli smiled as if the world had just made sense. What followed wasn't dramatic. There was no grand speech, no perfect resolution. There were hard conversations. Mara told Caleb about the man they ran from, about the fear that still lived in her bones. Caleb told her about his wife, about the years he spent building walls instead of a life. They talked until the sun dipped low, until silence no longer felt dangerous. They didn't decide everything that day. They didn't need to. Staying forever wasn't a promise. It was a choice made again each morning. Weeks passed, then months. The ranch changed. Laughter echoed where grief once lived. Eli learned to ride. Mara learned to trust. Caleb learned that love wasn't something you lost, it was something you risked. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sky burn orange, Eli leaned against Caleb and asked again, quieter this time, "You're really staying, right?" Caleb wrapped an arm around him and said, "As long as you'll have me." Mara reached for Caleb's hand, and for the first time, the future didn't feel like something to survive. It felt like something to build. If this story touched you, if it reminded you that family isn't always found where you expect it, then subscribe to the channel right now. Stories like this, stories about hope, healing, and the courage to stay are shared here every week, and your support helps keep them alive. Sometimes all it takes is one question from a child to change a life forever.